Oh my gosh, I did it again. I pressed the button again. And when you press the button again, what happens is all things break loose into the... so I was trying to do a thumbnail with the book. But now YouTube has a new system. It's so annoying. It's so incredibly annoying. It was just so much better when you could just do live streams the way that it did before. When you pressed... First of all, it was different graphics. Now they changed the graphics. So I didn't particularly like the darker graphics. Okay, so they changed it into lighter graphics. Now it has like a white background. They keep changing from white to black to black to brown. Man, just stop it, YouTube, for the love of Pete. Anyway, so I did the same mistake this morning because again, I'm not used to the system. It probably might take me a whole month to get used to the new system. But I was preparing to do the thumbnail at the beginning of this thing here, and one of the biggest issue is before you could just set it up so that it is this way, right, like this, instead of the thing that all the new kids like, because it's like the TikTok thing, this way anyway. So I like to do my live streams this way, in the old-fashioned way, this way. You can't really do that because what happens is you press the button and it's this way because you're typing into the thing. So then you try to turn it this way. And once it's this way, then you make the mistake. So you're trying to hit the button to redo the picture, but you forget that it's not done or whatever. You were getting ready and you do this thing here, so it picks it up. So by the time you do that, you press again. You think you're pressing the right button, but you're not. You're just starting the live. And so here we are. Twice this has happened now. Why YouTube decided to change it, I don't know. Whose idea was this? My kingdom for a manager. My kingdom for a manager. If I had a manager, I would be able to ask all these questions to the manager. But we're just guessing here. We're just guessing here on how all of this works, and not well. Let me just put it out there. Let me just say it. This new thing that you just did is not working well. It's just not working well. It was better before. What are you on, YouTube algorithm, that you wanted to change it? I don't know. So anyway, on positive news, I just watched the latest and greatest e-beggar from Eli the Computer Guy. There's some really fun new updates and cool things that he's doing right now with Silicon Dojo. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a really cool system that he's setting up to be able to provide hands-on free education with all the endless hoops that people have to jump through. You don't have to take a test. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be a specific type of person. You can just show up to class and hopefully not disrupt the class, and just get educated, which I think is really cool. Sometimes he calls it edumacated, which is really funny. But anyway, really fun stuff. I love it. He's done this whole program, and he's tried to make it, to keep it simple for the students. So he's gone and done extra work to figure out ways so that kids can learn basically different programming languages. But in general, he wants to keep it all sort of Python related. So you can build a website in Python. You can build little robots and get them to do stuff in Python and all that jazz. And so that is very cool. I think that's very smart. And one of the things that he said towards the end of the video, one of his live stream, the e-beggar live stream, was, and it's very intelligent. It's very intelligent because one of the things that happened to me when I was trying to get edumacated in the University of Kent at Canterbury in England was that we were learning all these different programs. Python was not a thing back then, so it was like basic C++. There was some JavaScript. There was some MATLAB. I think we did a little bit of DOS, but not much. It was just like stuff and some Visual Basic. Anyway, it was super dry and boring, and only the super top intelligent kids who already had some of the stuff in their mind did well in the course, and the other people like me eventually gave up. And part of the reason is they were trying to teach you things, how to build things in the best way possible, which sometimes doesn't inspire people to do anything. So what Eli the computer guy is trying to do, which is really intelligent in my opinion, is he wants to teach things in a way that is, keep it simple, the KISS idea. Allow kids to learn as many things as they can without jumping from program to program. And then when they're very, very confident and they've been able to, hands-on create things that they can instantly see. Well, the code gets inputted on this part, and then it goes over here. So you see exactly what you've done. You've inputted this code, and this code has instantly done something that is tangible. And basically you can hold it in your hand and see, okay, well, I typed the code here, so the robot wheel spins over here, or you type the code here, and look, this is what happens on the screen over here when I build a website. Very, very well and structured program, in my opinion. And so with this kind of philosophy, you'll get a lot of people who usually would not be able to understand how coding works at all and just give up. They'll start building things, get excited about building things because, hey, look, I've actually, accomplished something. And then they will dive deeper into things like JavaScript and so on and so forth later on, which is the way it should have been done. And if I had had a teacher like that, I think that I would be pretty good at coding. I did not, and so then eventually I gave up. And I tried to go the other route, which was towards art and all that kind of stuff. And let's face it, it's not good for business. It doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you to become a frustrated, unhappy person when things go bad because it's not a stable path for your future. So anyway, I thought I'd just throw that out there because it is something that I care about deeply. While all the other politicians and a bunch of people keep talking and talking and talking and not getting anything done, Eli the computer guy is actually creating something that I honestly really care about and that is going to be good for the future. So I'm hoping that it will go well and that more people will understand that this kind of thinking and way of teaching will get more of our children, because in the end we want to create the future, right? So we want our children to understand how all this stuff works so that they can go out and have stable lives. That's the plan. That's the idea. What else did we get into? I think that's it. I brought this back. This was supposed to be in the thumbnail, but it's not. And you know why now. I don't know if you can do that, if you can fix the thumbnail later after the fact. But yeah, it's not going to be there. Intentional robots. I promised you to bring this back. And as I run this channel with a simple philosophy of promises made, promises kept. The only thing I have not promised, that I have not kept is keep my garage, or the garage that I work in. It's not my garage, but the garage that I work in clean. And I'm working on that. And today I did a giveaway. I did a giveaway of one large TV. It's not huge. It's not the biggest. It's not the thinnest, but it works. And hopefully it'll get used well. And also a monitor. Those are available here in Irvine, California, Woodbridge at the, I think it's called a tennis court. Oh, what do you call? I don't know, something. If you are a Woodbridgean, if you live in Woodbridge, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, there's the giveaway is there for whoever wants to take it, or if it turns out that the Woodbridge Association wants to keep it in there because it's useful. And so if people go in there to chill out at the tennis courts when they're taking a break and they want to connect their computers or whatever it is to it, that's fine too. That's fine. Whatever you guys want to do. We are here at page 94 of 303, but that's not really the end of the book. That's where it goes to intentional robots, and I think it talks about a lot of people's names and stuff. So let's see, what is the actual last page to this thing? And while I do this, I'm going to tell you guys that I, as always, like to remain undefined. I prefer to remain undefined. Why? Because it's so annoying to be stereotyped and put into boxes and say, you are this, you are that. I just don't like it. And the labelists get on my nerves when they do stuff. So I will remain undefined. I am not red pill. I am not blue pill. I'm not black pill. I'm not any of this horse poop. I'm just me. The problem, I think it ends up around page 278, and then it goes into references and stuff like that. Let me see if that was it. No, that also has a TEM in a nutshell. TEM in a nutshell, which, so that was not really the end. The end, the bitter end was 273. 273 is the bitter end of this book for those who care to buy and read it. I don't know if this is actually been, if you can buy this on Amazon or whatever, but you could, I don't know. You could, or you couldn't, who knows. You can find it. It's by Riccardo Manzotti, international, no, it's not international. It's Intentional Robots, the design of a goal-seeking environment-driven agent. Ooh. Yeah, what was the agent in the Matrix? I can't remember. There was an agent. And boy, was he difficult. And he was all about, hey, Mr. Anderson. Anyway, I disavow any of those things. I am not a red, a blue, a black. I'm not even an orange pill. I'm just me, the problem. As I'm a Swiftie. I will define myself as I feel. Okay, so I'm going to start reading this, but before I do, I want to give you guys a little snippet. This is not really advice, but I'm just going to put it out there. It was just a thought that I came, because I've been watching a lot of the fun valuetainment content on, getting girls. What is the motto? Get paid, get laid, and do it your way. Jesus. Anyway, so it's a fun show. Again, if you treat it as a fun show, it's a fun show. There is some good advice there. I thoroughly enjoy watching Adam and Natalia, especially Natalia. And then, sadly, I don't know the names of all the awesome people in the background that are running the show, keeping it going, taking the videos. There's smoke in the background and everything. It's kind of exciting. But yeah, anyway. They talk about how do you get a high-value man, a high-value woman, a high-value whatever these days. And one of the things that is important to understand about high-value men, women, non-binary, whatever you call them these days, is that they don't particularly like when your spouse, their spouse or the person they're dating and stuff, gets their grubby fingers too much into their personal space about when it comes to money. And part of the reason why that is simply because they're wealthy. Wealthy people don't like other people to, scrutinize their money. So one of the things that I could say there for you guys, if you're wondering if you want to get that high value man, woman, or non-binary, whatever, is during the dating phase, if you will, you do need to do the vetting, right? Because you don't want to, if you are looking for that kind of person, right? You're kind of looking for that high value person, you do need to do a little bit of scrutiny and figure out and vet them to see if they actually do have money, or they just borrowed some cash and then they're driving, or they rented out the Lamborghini or whatever it is for their YouTube channel, and so they turn out to be like broke. Which would suck, right? But beyond that point, if you want to keep them, you just have to be able to do what they call a leap of faith, right? If you care about the person and you want the person, stay out of their money. Don't look at it. Otherwise, you are just a gold digging, person. And it is really about the lifestyle and the money. Don't kid yourself. If you're actually in love with them or care about them and the relationship, you will stay out of their money. If you don't, then you know that it's going to be a lot of issues down the road. And a lot of people, they're going into these relationships with a lawyer on retainer so that they can just have their wedding and then, screw with them and then just take half of their money. So, if you're truly going to go after a high value man, then go after a high value man. Make that leap of faith after you've vetted them. You know that they do have the money. So if you went in and they were making $1 million, as Patrick Bet-David has explained, usually those people, if they already have $1 million, you know that their path is to keep making more. So if they are already a millionaire and you got married with them when they were already a millionaire, you know it's going to go up. Just trust that person and stop looking into their financials. Keep your money separate. It's going to be less of a hassle for you, and you won't run into as many issues as you would if you keep scrutinizing and checking into their financial. And how much does he have? And what did he do with his money? And stuff like that. Just stay out of it. Anyway. Now let's jump into robots. Robots are not people. They're very easy to deal with compared to people because they don't have hidden agendas. Anyway, so let's jump in here. So what did we get to? We got to chapter in the last value. Sorry. Did we finished? Okay, let's go back one page real quick so we can, because it's been a while. It's been a minute. So the compatibility of empirical science. Hey, look, empirical. That comes back to, I was reading the other CFA book this morning. It has empirical in there too. Empirical. The compatibility of empirical science. So let's go. A further criterion is the applicability and compatibility with empirical sciences. Frequently, a theory of consciousness has been viewed as the last chapter in the last volume of Neurosciences Encyclopedia. So then it goes, reality might be different. It is further possible than, sorry, I gotta make sure that the camera is turned off and it doesn't kill the battery to the car, because that would suck. Occasionally I need to have the stopwatch here in the back so that I know when to pick up people who need to be picked up. I don't want to go over a certain time and get in trouble. Okay, so we left off at, okay, here we go. It is further possible that a complete theory of conscious mind might reveal a wider horizon for normal science. To have an explanation of the mind, it might necessary to build new foundations both for the mind and for the material world as such. Of course, this theory must still be loose, compatible with what is known for the physical world. In this anticipated theory of mind, empirical sciences would acquire that meaning it has never acquired in its own right. It is also conceivable that a theory of mind might shape itself around psychophysical laws like those proposed by David Chalmers. These fundamental or basic laws will be cast at a level connecting basic properties of experience with simple features of the physical world. The laws should be precise and should together leave no room for underdetermination. When combined with the physical facts about a system, they should enable us to perfectly predict the phenomenal facts about the system. Even this kind of bridging principles might be incapable of spanning the real nature of mind, since it belongs to the old dualistic framework. A more radical revolution might be needed. The importance of merging together subjective domains with objective science must not be underestimated. Hopefully, empirical sciences should extend their traditional scope to a new domain of facts thanks to the bridging principles deriving from a great unification. Something similar to the just mentioned Chalmers' psychophysical laws. Empirical science would maintain its control over objective facts. There would be no exception to the casual closure of the physical and objective realms. For example, a theory of consciousness that had to suppose a direct action on matter by some kind of spiritual substance not belonging to the objective world would not be a theory compatible with the present scientific framework. The physical world must maintain its supremacy within its proper boundaries and, from the point of view of objective facts, its closure. The framework into which objective facts have been placed in the last 4 centuries of scientific advancement must be perceived as an advantage rather than an obstacle. So there's a little bit over here on the bottom, which I'm going to read for you guys real quick. And it goes, for example, Antonio R. Damasio claims that solving the mystery of consciousness is not the same as solving all the mysteries of the mind. Consciousness is an indispensable ingredient of the, creative human mind, but it is not all of human mind. And as I see it, it is not the summit of mental complexity either. Damasio, 1999, sends you to page 44 for some reason. Anyway, Chalmers, 1996. Not casually, Chalmers defines his own position as a sort of dualism of property. Okay, now I will continue on with the rest of the book bit. A correct theory of mind cannot be independent of our knowledge of the physical processes underlying our mental activity, and it cannot fail to address the characteristics of our mental world directly. Subjectivity, first-person perspective, unity, representation, and having content. Too many theories of mind of purely theoretical nature had no link with all the empirical data collected by scientists. When dealing with the brain too often, scientists did forget the fact that there is always a conscious subject behind those gray cells. It is conceivable that a convincing theory of mind might change the meaning of many present-day scientific theories and the rightful domain of such theories, objective facts. In scientific research, this is something that can always happen. General relativity did not change the equation of the gravitational attraction, but it gave a new meaning to the known concept of space, time, and speed. Philosophy never reverts to its old position after the shock of a great philosopher. As far as we know, it is improbable that the study of consciousness could reveal unknown physical phenomena. Like Newtonian laws keep their validity in most of circumstances, so traditional mental concepts continue to be applicable. The very emergence of consciousness as supporters of emergentism have sometimes stated is a void concept, or the emergent phenomenal property is a physical fact, and therefore it is not ontologically emergent, or it is not a physical fact, and thus it is not emergentism. Wow, that's one for the ages, that one. But dualism. Besides, to date, there has been no convincing proofs up to now of any special kind of physical phenomenon going on in our brain. Nevertheless, the real challenge that a theory of mind must accept is the apparent diversity between physical objective facts and subjective phenomenal facts, along with the definition of a wider framework that could accommodate both of them without necessarily reducing one or the other. Which is pretty fun to understand. 4.6, everyday experience and compatibility. I don't know if this even works. I pressed the button over here. It says chat viewing options, top chat, live chat, none. I don't know how that works. What if you do live chat? What does that do? Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Who cares? It didn't change anything, though. Does it put it somewhere? Who cares? Anyway, it is YouTube. It's a mess. On the other platforms, you can tell what's going on, and the messages actually stay on screen so that you can tell what's going on. But not on YouTube, because YouTube doesn't care about us, the content creators, at all, and it makes it confusing. Anyway, 4.6, everyday experience compatibility. The proper domain of a science of mind should include everyday life and should explain how common sense psychological theories arise. This is the common sense framework of beliefs, desires, which we usually adopt to understand other people's behavior. As Jerry Fodor wrote, a theory of mind that does not respect the efficacy of such concepts should not be taken seriously into consideration. Whitehead, 1927, about the effect of change in normal categories and the way it affects the activities of researchers. See also Popper, 1959, and Kuhn, 1962. Please, YouTube algorithm of death, do not think that I said something else. Kuhn is a person, just in case the algorithm wants to go wild. The main moral is supposed to be that we have, as things now stand, no decisive reason to doubt that the very many common sense belief, desires, explanations are literally true, which is just as well, because of common sense intentional psychology really were to collapse, that would be beyond comparison the greatest intellectual catastrophe in the history of our species. If we are that wrong about the mind, then that's the worst we've ever been about anything. Nothing except our common sense physics, our intuitive commitment to world of observer independent middle-sized objects comes as near our cognitive core as intentional explanation does. After all, Newton's theory of gravitation explained both the orbit of the moon and the falling of common objects. A theory of mind is also a theory of the subject. Common everyday individual subjects. These subjects should recognize themselves in the description proposed by this theory. A mental framework must be able to explain those everyday subjective facts that have been traditionally neglected by science. In the long run, such a theory should come up with a convincing explanation of its dynamics. Everyday experiences should be explained without resorting to their advocated dissolution into the objective reports of the hard sciences. Anyway, this is a pretty important fact here that's going on in this book, and it's explaining that what establishes the concept of human being as opposed to the concept of a mechanical being that was created by humans. And so it becomes catastrophic if a machine is not able to comprehend, and we've seen this over and over and over, comprehend what human beings are able to comprehend, and just basically think in a very very constructive and rudimentary way, and basically they can make some really bad decisions based on that. And so basically the idea is what I keep talking about every time that I get in front of the camera and I do these robotic things, whether it's with iNeedle or with Vector or any other robots, is we must, as a species, learn ourselves how to teach the Terminator how to do things correctly, or we will be finished. The robots are not going to be Terminators unless we make them so, right? It is the worst part of humanity that turned the Terminator into the Terminator. It was not the Terminator itself that just decided to terminate human beings. We passed on the worst virtues, if you will, which is kind of a contradictory way of saying it. But anyway, we passed on our worst traits to the Terminator, and then the Terminator decided to get rid of us. So, 4.7, possible candidates. The above criteria can now be applied to several theories of mind that were proposed in the past. Clearly, a convincing theory of mind should score positively with all of them. This is not a historical work. So the... Okay, are we back? Are we not back? I'm hoping we're back. Okay, I do apologize. What happened is, let me explain. Lizard people enjoy the sun and enjoy the heat. Unfortunately, the iPhone 13 does not, and so it overheated, and so I had to find a different spot to park and turn on the AC in order for the iPhone 13 mini to come back to life. So that is why suddenly I dropped offline. I strongly apologize for that. Again, lizard people do well in the desert, and we love California. Everybody else is like, California weather is so hot. Move, go. More space for us, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't like the weather in California, there are so many places out there that you could go to. Just go. But anyway, so that's what happened here. My my iPhone 13 mini overheated, and so it dropped out. So sorry guys, I'm gonna go back to here where we left off, and I will continue reading. Thank you so much for being stoic and staying on the live stream. So that was what happened there. Hopefully it will continue okay now. It's gonna be a little bit louder in the car because I have to run the AC. Okay, let's see if we can still do it. We'll put it at minimum. Again, lizard people love the heat. I enjoy it. So I didn't even realize what was going on until too late. Possible candidates. The above criteria can now be applied to several theories of mind that were proposed in the past. Clearly, a convincing theory of mind should score positively with all of them. This is not a historical work, so the candidates considered here have been chosen as pure examples of points of view. Besides, the theories in question neatly represent a precise range of conceptual possibilities. The list of candidates includes Descartes' dualism of substance, Berkeley's idealism, Armstrong's pure physicalism, not reductionistic functionalism, Locke and Fodor, functional reductionism, Hume and Dennett. This list could have been lengthened at will, yet these 5 points of view are enough for a first overview. Theories not directly represented in this paragraph can be compared to the one we have chosen. Before we go into the for example, it says here, Fodor was 1987. Di Francesco is 1996. It says clearly each of these authors is used in these paragraphs in a highly stereotyped way. This is used and useful only to achieve a quick overview of the general panorama of failures related with the comprehension of the mind. So, okay, now we're going to jump back to the other thing, which is, for example, most of cognitive scientists could be classified as reductionistic functionalists, supporters of eliminatism. Anyway, to eliminate something. That's where it's going there with that word that I can't pronounce. Would match well with pure physicalism. Behaviorists would oscillate between these two positions and so on. So they would oscillate between those two positions and so on. The results of this comparison are shown in table 4.2 that illustrates how no mentioned theory succeeds in solving all problems. Dualism, for example, is not compatible with empirical sciences. It would be very expensive from an ontological point of view. Pure physicalism fails on many points. The existence of subject freedom, the ontology of subjective states, and the quality of phenomenal states. Idealism drains the physical world of value, and it does not offer any plausible link between the physical structure and the spiritual life of a subject. No version of functionalism deals adequately with the quality of phenomenal states, with the very existence of subjects. Reductionistic version with the nature of phenomenal objects, with representation and freedom, and suffer of an excessive ontological prodigality, not reductionistic version. So I'm going to show you this little thing it was alluding to right here. You see this little, I don't know if it's a chart or something, but anyway, gives you some idea of what's going on in there. And so it says there are subjective entities, and it will say yes to substance dualism. Descartes, it's like that's the name of the person, I think. It says yes to idealistic eliminativism from Berkeley. It says no to materialistic eliminativism, and no to not reductionistic functionalism, and so on and so forth, and no to reductionistic functionalism from Hume Dennett. Anyway, it's a pretty complicated little thing there, and based on what they're trying to just say, it'll just basically give you different opinions on what it is and stuff. So is it useful? Is it not useful? I leave that up to you guys to decide. Anyway, there's a summary here, which I will read to you on the next page, which is page 98, in case you guys have this book. So it says, summary. What requirements must a theory of consciousness have in order to be able to distinguish between subjects and objects? Does such a theory have particular needs, or can it be treated like any other scientific theory? Due to the Welk-knot posed by consciousness and due to the limitations of extensional ontology, we claim that a different criterion must be used in this case. A theory regarding consciousness cannot limit itself to a narrow scope. The conscious mind is the point, both conceptual and real, in which reality knows and experiences itself. It is the point where what exists is identical to what is represented. That is why it is so difficult to solve it. Here are proposed 6 criteria: ontological economy, Occam's razor, direct experience, explicative power and predicting capability, experiential adequacy, empirical science compatibility, everyday experience compatibility. We propose the following approach. First, a revision of the fundamental ontological framework of reality and an a priori conceptual reshaping of the fundamental categories. Then a series of empirical experiments with the aim to verify the predictions made by such a theory. The basic idea is that the objective framework metaphysically denied the existence of the subjective domain, and this was a consequence of the Cartesian scissor. It appears that reality has been arbitrarily split into 2 halves. It must regain its unity. Interesting. Okay. Wow, that was a lot. Let's see if we can turn off the engine now and survive. I will survive. It's getting too chilly for me in the car, but will the iPhone Mini 13 survive? That's the real question. So we're going to go into intentionalizing nature, which is really interesting, and see how that turns out. One of the things that's important to understand about reality is computers. Computers are not that intelligent. And so if one of the reasons why the Terminator would want to terminate a human is the same reason why a person might get angry with another person is, for instance, they don't understand humor, for instance, is one of those. And then the difference between being literal and being, not literal. And also the fact that, like, for instance, if you go with with people and their intentions. They're like, okay, so I am going to walk across the street, right? You might say that, and then if you're a person, you will do that, right? But then what's important to understand between like robot languages and human languages, a human might add, I will cross the street safely, right? I won't just cross the street. Or I will cross the street safely on the pedestrian crossing. You know, the robot might just say, make a right turn at the light, you know, but it might not add, make sure the light is giving you the green, or make sure that if you are in California, you yield to the traffic coming from the left and then make the right turn, because you can't just turn. All this kind of stuff that a human knows, but a machine does not know, and it can create confusion in the language. So anyway, intentionalizing nature. Almost all really new ideas have certain aspects of foolishness when they are first produced. Alfred N. Whitehead. In the last century, two approaches dominated the field of philosophy. On the one hand, there was a problem of what is there? Like, what is there? The old ontological problem. On the other hand, there was the problem of how do we know that there is something? The old genesiological problem from Genesis, I guess. I don't know. In this chapter, we claim that it is possible to propose a unique principle capable of satisfying ontological and epistemological requirements. This principle will be termed intentional relation, or on-feen. This term refers to the elementary constituent of fundamental domain. We have introduced this term to emphasize the connection between it and Brentano's intentionality. However, the two are not the same, so we will try to highlight what the commonalities and differences are. Where do we get to? Oh, lost. The on-feen will be used to deal with the well-known mind-body problem in order to reach a foundation for both the subjective and the objective aspects of reality. Our main goal is to present a new ontology that will be the basis of the following a posteriori verification. So in the posterior, they put a lot of Italian words in here. Fancy pantsy. As Franz Brentano wrote in 1874 in one of the most famous as well as most criticized passages of philosophy, every mental phenomenon is characterized by what the scholastics of the Middle Ages called the intentional or mental inexistence of an object, and what we might call though not ambiguously, reference to a content direction toward an object, which is not to be understood here as meaning a thing or immanent objectivity. Every mental phenomenon includes something as object within itself, although they do not all do so in the same way. In presentation, something is presented. In judgment, something is affirmed or denied. In love, loved. In hate, hated. In desire, desired, and so on. This intentional inexistence is characteristic exclusively of mental phenomena. No physical phenomenon exhibits anything like it. We can therefore define mental phenomena by saying that there are those phenomena which contain an object intentionally within themselves. And indeed, intentionality has become one of the main concerns of philosophers of mind. There is almost a general consensus that the capability of referring to external events is what makes mental events so irreducible to physical structures. Yet, as we have previously outlined, it seems impossible to find suitable candidates for such a role. We propose a different approach. Instead of trying to produce intentionality on top of fundamentally not intentional reality, we suppose that the fundamental domain of reality is a kind of original intentionality. This move is radically different from other approaches that endeavored to naturalize intentionality. In this thesis, intentionality is perceived as something fundamental and, as we will see, something that expresses the true nature of experience as well as the content of the experience. So there's a little thing here that you guys can take a look at right here, little drawing. And what this says is intentionality is at the top. Then below it you have phenomenon and episteme. And then below that is ontology. And then on the next one, it's the same. Ontology, phenomenon, episteme, and intentionality or onfinity. So the classical approaches to naturalize intentionality, as opposed to our approach, intentionalizing nature. I need to go back a page for a second to talk about a thing that I forgot to read, which was Whitehead, 1978. We use the old term nosology we use the old term nosology purposefully. Here we refer to general problem of knowing something about the world, and we do not want to use a term with a heavy burden of recent historical debates, such as epistemology. Besides, we use the term epistemology to denote only objective knowledge. Okay, so we can go back to that picture that I was showing you guys before, right there. And here we will talk about figure 5:1. Traditionally, many attempts have been made to reduce intentionality to other categories: physical reality, language, knowledge. On the contrary, our approach claims that it is possible to reduce everything to intentionally, which then becomes the fundamental ontological layer. This is a radical ontological revolution. There are so many revolutionaries in the tech world. It's all about the revolution, the new revolution. Anyway, we are at 5.1 on page 101. The principle of conservation of meaning and experience. And let's see, how long is this thing going to go? It's not that long. So we'll see how long we can go before I have to go. Before attempting to redefine the fundamental ontological framework, a general criterion must be stated. We will call it the principle of conservation. Conservation, not conversation. Conservation, to conserve something, not to converse. Anyway, we will call it the principle of the conservation of meaning and experience. The two terms, meaning and experience, refer respectively to the two levels in which knowledge is usually divided. On one level, there is meaning, seen as a conceptual high-level epistemic way of referring to reality. On the other, there is a phenomenal experience, colors, pains, flavors. In brief, the principle says that something that makes a difference must exist, which is kind of reductionary, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. The principle claims that if there is a difference, any kind of difference, there must be a corresponding difference in the ontology of the world. As a result, it is impossible that something is only part of a thought or of an experience or a perception, since everything which is must have a place in ontology. The idea that there are two dimensions or two domains is derived from a dualistic ontology. If such ontology is rejected, there is no place for anything that is not embodied by something real. The principle must be considered as an ontological criterion and not as an epistemic or causal one. The something that makes a difference must be made up of something and not merely caused by something. This distinction is important because the corresponding causal or causal version of the principle would be less sustainable. The principle supposes that what exists must be explained by just one domain of entities. It is an implicit anti-dualistic claim. Okay. It entails that if meaning and experience are something different from nothing, and there are, since we have a direct empirical contact with them, they must correspond to a difference in the ontology. Any change in our knowledge and our experience of reality entails a corresponding change in reality itself. Any change in the mind should entail a change in reality. There is no ontological free lunch. Okay, so this is kind of like the same thing that they say when they say there's no such thing as energy. Energy doesn't just disappear. So if it exists, it exists. It just moves from one thing to another, like the battery and stuff. I guess this is what they're trying to say in a way. I don't know. Is something real because it exists in real space, or is it real because it exists within your mind? Are they both existing simultaneously? And which one is more important when you live in the physical world? So many ways of looking at this, and it's just really hard to tell what the best way to determine what reality is, because so many things are happening simultaneously, right? You have a whole reality going on in your own brain. Then there's a reality in this plane of field here where you have your physical body, the human suit, the meat suit that you're in. And then there's objects within this reality, and how do they affect you and all that kind of stuff. So it is a lot. Imagine you've created a third dimension, right? You have the dimension in your brain, you have the dimension in the space, physical space that you're in, and then you have a window into a third dimension, which is the live stream. So it gets really complicated. How many dimensions can you be in at the same time, right? It was a concept that a while back was not really understood, but now look, with live streaming, you could be sometimes I run a penta live, which means that I exist in multiple realms. I exist within my understanding of myself in my brain. I exist in the reality that I'm on, and then I exist on 5 different screens. It's kind of crazy with technology. Back in the day, it was so expensive that I only had one screen. And part of the reason why it was hard for people to learn technology such as coding and things is because you only had access to one screen. So with that, you were either reading information from a book and hoping that you would understand what's going on with your book and then be able to translate that information from there onto your computer screen. But now with the ability even to split your screen in half and have half of your screen, so within one screen, you could be looking at the code, and on the secondary screen, within the one screen even, you could be looking at other information simultaneously. Also, the fact that screens are so cheap now, you could have 2 or 3 screens, and that could help you. You could be searching up which code to use on one screen. You could have one screen for typing in your code, and you can have a third screen to see what your code is doing on the third screen. It is the beauty of the modern world. Things that, were really difficult back in my day when I was trying to learn to code and learn how to do so many different other things. And eventually I gave up. I don't know, maybe if I tried it today, I would have higher chances of being able to be successful at it. Who knows? Reality is a very complex thing. The former produces the objective domain, the latter the subjective. In reality, it derives from the more ancient distinction between essence and existence that was already well established in during the time of Aristotle. So Aristotelian metaphysics. In this way, the principle of conservation of meaning and experience recalls supervenience. There's a thing called supervenience. I didn't know. According to the normal usage of the term supervenience, the mental domain is supervenient on the physical one. As we will see, it is possible to propose a different solution according to which both the mental domain as well as the physical, where does this jump over to? Does it continue on there? Yeah. Physical, there's supposed to be a period, but there is not, which is why I read it that way. And when you jump to the other side, and again, you can't make this stuff up, it starts with a capital letter on the top of the line. So, yeah. If we had a theory that explained why knowledge and experience are a part of reality, how consciousness is part of reality, what the ontology of representation is, and what perceptions, phenomenal experience, subjective knowledge are, there would be no more need to divide the world of knowledge from the world of being here in the world. Being and becoming would merge into a compound principle. Did I just read the wrong thing? This is why when I talk about dyslexia being a serious problem, it is a serious problem, and people don't seem to understand how difficult it is for people to learn when they are dyslexic. And I think the problem was that I said, to which both the mental domain as well as the physical, and what should have happened was, I should have gone to the physical, and it goes to domain, are supervenient on a further ontological, domain are supervenient on a further ontological dimensions. Clearly, any change in physical domain should not entail a change in the mental domain. However, supervenience is different from the principle proposed, since supervenience is just a structure of logical relations between different properties or entities. It does not say anything about their ontology. So what happens there was, I was reading the bottom bit here, and when you jump over to the next page, don't go to the top. Continue reading. Gosh darn it. Continue reading directly from the bottom. So there was this line there, and the same line existed in the previous part of the book. So continue reading from that bit, and you'll be fine. Intentionality as being representation and being in relation with. So let's see. It says, given the aforementioned difficulties in finding a suitable place for representation as such, a different approach is proposed here. Its aim is to outline a different framework for representation and consciousness. This framework will eventually be tested on more empirical grounds, both as a guideline for grounding representations in building a robot and as a explanatory tool to provide insight into normal consciousness experience, the normal consciousness experience. The first step proposes a simplification of the current ontological pattern, the persistent division between the thing that is, the object, and the thing that it represents. Such a difference can range historically from the neural pattern, external objects paradigm, to the Thomistic es in mente, es in re dichotomy, passing through Descartes' dualism, is due to the empirically unjustified belief in an autonomous domain of purely extensional entities. The proposed principle eliminates both the possibility of this domain and the difference between what is represented and what is representing. In the following, the consequences of this move are examined. Perhaps in dealing with representations, we might have to deal with problems since two or more supposed separate concepts denote the same object. A first issue concerns the possibility of finding suitable candidates for the role of autonomous representations. By relation or similarity in the physical domain, how to find a genuine physical autonomous representation by both similarity and relation. Let me just check real quick. We're still good. We're still good. This goal is obtained by equating representation with existence as suggested by the principle of conservation. The hypothesis is that both terms denote the same domain. For example, let's pick up something that we can assert exists, a stone. Well, that stone is undoubtedly represented itself. It has all the properties of a stone. In this sense, we can say that that stone is representing something. On the other hand, all our conscious mental states are events. Reality is different. Since we are conscious of something instead of something else, it follows that our conscious mental states are something that exists. They are real. Therefore, they exist. Existence and representation cannot be split apart. On the other hand, there is another aspect of reality that cannot be eliminated easily. Being in relations with. If we know something, it is because there is a relation between that something and us. Being conscious of some content entails a relation. If something were completely destitute of anything in relation with the rest of reality, it could not exercise any effect on anything, and it would be out of our reality. It would not exist. From an empirical point of view, we cannot say that the existence of something which was lacking the property of being in relation with something else has never been experienced. In order to exist, everything must be in relation with other entities. The same conceptual evolution can be recognized in the passage from Newton's classical physics to quantum mechanics. In the Newton's case, matter existed independently of any relation with the rest of reality. After all, matter was very similar to Descartes' res extensa. Planets and body were where they were, and they did not depend on anything else except their own intrinsic capacity of existing. In quantum mechanics, it is impossible to speak of something that is outside the act of observation. The very act of observation can modify what is not. I didn't read that well, so I'm going to reread that bit. The very act of observation can modify what is to be measured. While in quantum mechanics, the relation between subjective and objective measurement is still far from clear, that is the role of conscious mind in determining the structure of reality. The progressive evolution towards the unification of existence and being in relation with is manifest. In this previous paragraphs, we have looked for a radical modification in the categories usually accepted to interpret reality, something that could be used as the basis for rational explanation of the world, its representation, and its objective knowledge. The elementary but fundamental conclusion that being is being in relation with has been reached. Reality must have at its roots something that can embody the essence of being and also being a relation. Besides existence and representation seem to be equally inseparable. Nevertheless, there is still what Kant, again, this please YouTube algorithm death, Kant is a person, it says right there in the book, called the most difficult problem of philosophy, the problem of representation. How is it possible that something represent something different? In a purely extensional ontology, an unresolved problem is how can extension produce an intention? With a slogan, how is it possible to create an intention using only extensions without an ontological implicit expense? It is true that the concept of intention can be shown as a relation between entities or as a function between possible worlds and references. Extensions, so basically i.e. extensions, but without the existence of minds, there is neither a meaningful way to justify the existence of intentions or meanings or content or concepts or qualia. If someone looks at a written word, it is clear that those graphic signs have no intrinsic representational capabilities, but that their being signs is derived from choices, properties, and existence of conscious observers. Of course, when we look at our mental representations of concepts or of external objects, we do not need another conscious being to know what the contents of our mental states are. Our mental states seem to have a sort of intrinsic representational capacity that has no place in an extensional ontology. It is as if, as we said in chapter 0, the word fox, physically made of ink on the sheet of paper, would know by itself what it refers to. Obviously, it is not possible because such a semantic relation requires a conscious human being, its user. Removing conscious beings imply the removal of all representations, apart from the problematic ontology of meaning and qualia. The problem is that without a conscious being, which is the carrier of relation between a representation and its reference, there seems not to be any straightforward way to express the relation of representation between extensions. To this apparently unsolvable conundrum, we propose a possible solution summarized in 3 statements that we claim are collectively true both empirically and theoretically. Their acceptance is the basis for our radically modified ontological framework. The idea is that these 3 separate aspects of reality, existence, representations, and being in relation with are just 3 separate roles of the same fundamental principle. They have been seen as separate concepts because they correspond to 3 different ways of looking at the same principle. We can go one step towards our solution with the consideration that nothing can be said to be a separate instance of just one of these 2 aspects. Nothing exists without being in relation with, nothing is in relation without existing, nothing represents without existing, nothing exists without representing, nothing represents without being in a relation with, nothing is in relation with without representing. If we look at the world around us as we can observe that each extension, each object, and each event represents only one thing in an unproblematic way itself. This almost obvious fact carries us to first strong assumption: representation is existence. Further and conversely, existence is representation. Existence is also being in relation with, therefore representation is being in relation with. In short, we can state that FT, fundamental thesis. Anyway, so this is as far as we go with the book today. We will continue on hopefully tomorrow. I do want to get through this book. It is a fun book. It is very good. It is extremely confusing to some people. And part of the reason why this is very confusing is it gives you a bunch of different definitions. So this works so long as this works, and this works in relation to this thing. And it goes on and on and on. So staying with it from the beginning until the end is complicated. As well as living as a human is very complicated. For people like me who are very, very simplistic, when I get together with people, when I talk to people, I do not have a hidden agenda. I'm just talking to you, and I'm telling you things, and sometimes there's some humor in there, and sometimes there is some underlying factor or whatever. There might be some hidden not hidden agendas, but hidden jokes within the words that I say. But there's usually, it's just very simplistic, right? Simplistic, which is why people usually understand what I'm trying to say when I'm saying it. Some words may be not the best for children, so you just say something in code, it just goes over kids' heads. The adults understand it, so it's kind of like what Disney used to do in the old days, where they colored things up, and whoever basically, if the information was there for you to understand, you would get it, not. But generally speaking, in the work or the office world, I was just the same way, but not, I was extremely literal. Let's just put it this way. extremely literal. And since I was brought up in the sort of Christian way, many things that I said could have upset people, such as from a Christian perspective, you might say something in an interview or say something like, I wouldn't want to waste your time. And what you are saying there is exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to tell you this thing, but I wouldn't want to waste your time, in the sense that I'm trying my best to give you the information that you want from me, and to do it in a concise and proper way, as well as, I really appreciate that you gave me the time of day, and that we are talking about this opportunity, and I definitely want to be part of the company, but I wouldn't want to waste your time by doing something else and getting in the way of stuff. And that can be, the problem is that can be understood as, well, you're not really interested in this opportunity, which is not, that's the problem, right? As some people like me are really, really direct, right? We're really direct in the things that we say, and we're really simplistic in the way that we say things. But most other people are not. And that's one thing that I have had to understand in when approaching and when talking to people, is they're always looking in to see what their hidden agenda is. And when it comes to me, there just isn't one. I am more like a robot. I am more like a robot than I am a human. And therefore, in the way that I communicate, there is no hidden agenda. But most people are looking for that. They're looking for that hidden agenda. And, if you say the wrong thing, it triggers red flags and wherever it is, which is unfortunate. So yeah, things to think about in your path as a human. Things to think about. Anyway, intentional robots. A lot of the things that go on in real life, such as, and this was one of the cool things that I listened, and it kind of stuck with me, that Eli, the computer guy, said, some of the most important conversations about you and in your life are the ones that you'll never know about. So you can do the best that you can at your job, but you can't control what is said about you behind your back. You can't control whether, you may have made a mistake because you're, too Christian, or you're too this, or you're too that. You may make some mistakes. And let's face it, in the real world of business, there's only so many mistakes you get to do before people don't particularly want to work with you, don't want to talk to you, or whatever it is. And depending on how well you fit within the environment that you live, or that you work in, or that you live in, you will thrive or you will fail. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I talk about my experience with ID Tech camps. I was in Florida, and the environment was so loving, caring, and affectionate that it was just fantastic. I was thriving there. And it was just beautiful. At the end of my experience there, my boss even, wrote me a card to welcome me back to Florida, hopefully to go back and work there and stuff. But when I had a similar job experience here in Irvine, I didn't get that kind of emotional support. And it was just super, super elitist and cutthroat. So that's the difference between one environment and the other environment. I'm the kind of guy who thrives within a sort of welcoming environment where all the people in the business are watching out for each other. They understand that each and every one has pros and cons. There are things about my character that can annoy people, especially apparently in California. People seem to believe that there's hidden agendas within kindness or whatever. So excessive kindness or being nice to people is considered to be offensive in California. I don't know why, but it is this way. It's what I've seen. time and time again. I've seen it. So yeah. What's a good boy? What's a Christian to do? I don't know. It'd be nice if I could change California from here, but many people are like, yeah, well, you know what you should do? You should leave California. It's easier said than done. I mean, I have a family here, and so I could leave California and go somewhere else that is more conducive or better for my personality. Yeah, but then it would change the game, right? I would have to change the way the game is played. I would have to leave, and I'd have to do what a man has to do, and probably ditch the family at that point, because I've had long distance relationships in the past, and it worked kind of, but then it only works so long, and then things go bad. So no, not a fan. So it would probably cause some serious issues. So that's why it's a bit of a conundrum. Live in California, or move, or find an oasis, if you will. Find an oasis within California where people aren't so cutthroat. It feels like, working here is a little bit like, if you haven't seen this show, you should go check it out. The Circle, it's on Netflix. You should check it out. It gives you the kind of idea of what it's like to work in California. If you've never worked in California, don't come here. If you are super Christian-y, if you are super competitive, if you are a genius in your field, and you're okay with the cutthroat people doing weird politics and things behind your back, if you're that kind of guy or gal or whatever, California is a place for you. You will do well, you will thrive here. If you're the kind of relaxed kind of human being who is happy to work with people and be a support system, you get on with what you have to do, but you kind of also if you see someone else in the workplace that is struggling with something, or you want to help them out, or whatever it is, and you're that kind of person who just reaches out because you like to be helpful to others, you will find it hard. You will find it hard in California. Anyway, so with that said, guys, I will hopefully do another book reading for you guys soon on this book, Intentional Robots, Riccardo Manzotti. And with that, I will end the live as I often end the live by saying, it's okay. If you are a blue hair, you can leave me a PayPal dollar. If for the divorce fund, if you are a red-blooded or hot-blooded alpha conservative, you can drop $1 in the PayPal box. The haters can drop $1 in the Hate Binge Watch Fund. The libertarians and everything between can leave $1 for comic relief. And yeah, what was it? The red-blooded alpha conservatives are the ones for the Be Your Own Man Fund. So anybody who wants to drop $1 in that can, but you won't. So just wait for the insult video that's about to pop up right here. And the go get yourself a boat, big spender video that's about to show up on here. Put it in a lake and go float yourself. So anyway, with that, I'm going to see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Take care, guys.